Hi, Prof. Hi, friends. Sir, if we can hear some background sounds, and if it can be annoying, yeah, noise from, I don't know if it's my husband mowing or a neighbor. But yeah. To start, this week's reading are great resource of materials to refer to when it comes to developing one's knowledge and skills in teaching or exposing our students to reading skills. So to start, what is reading? Based on Scarborough's model of the reading rope, reading requires a variety of skills that two central are word recognition and oral language comprehension. Word recognition um, encompasses the following skills: phonological awareness, phonemic, phonological and phonemic awareness, phonics and decoding skills, automatic recognition of common words, the ability to read common phonetically irregular words. I remember um, when I was in first grade, because that's how I remember I learned to read, that I was reading a book, that I was reading basic sentences, is when I was in first grade. I know I've learned um, early on that, writing letters, but at school, I remember that I learned how to read using this automatic recognition of common words. So basically, the use of sight words. I never get to learn how to read through phonological awareness um, first. So it was basic sight words and phonological awareness. Um, I think, if, as far as I could remember, when it comes to how I started reading. So for oral language comprehension, it encompasses, among other skills, vocabulary knowledge, background knowledge, sentence comprehension, understanding figurative language. Yep. Um, with this, um, growing up, also I learned both Filipino and English to acquire a lot of vocabulary words from elementary to high school. Um, and I remember that there's a lot to memorize when it comes to vocabulary word tests, because both languages are taught at the same time throughout even college. This idea is supported similarly by the article of Farrell and the rest of the co-authors 2010 that highlights the simple reading view, which is acronym as SVR. According to the authors, reading is good reading comprehension requires two broad sets of abilities: word recognition and oral language comprehension. Each of these elements, word recognition and oral language comprehension, includes a set of specific component. However, the text elaborates on the different phases of the reading acquisition ability of the students. Reading experts Lina Airy, 1991-2005, cited by the article of Farrell and the rest of the co-authors, she has identified the typical stages of reading development. For example, from pre-K, students believes that, I quote, at this stage, many children do not grasp the alphabetic principle and do not understand that printed words need to be decoded with attention to letters and letter patterns, which makes sense for me because before, not knowing all of the early childhood strategies, my classroom was very chaotic. Not all the time, but remembering my first year in teaching pre-K and coming from secondary, I don't use a lot of visual aids, or as simple as those schedule. And so there were a lot of emotion outbursts and behaviors. In reading this, it does really validates how important visual aid to pre-K, because the way they read, the way they comprehend is having those visual support for them. Relatively, however, 2019 describes different views of reading, and these are: learning to read means learning to pronounce. Next is learning to read means to identify and understand their meaning. And last view is learning to read means learning to bring meaning to a text, to get meaning from or understanding a text. He also put emphasis on the importance of schemas in reading, which led him to define, I quote, reading is not merely a psycholinguistic process involving the mind of the reader and the language of text. Reading is a social psycholinguistic process. After all, the reader, text, and transaction occur within a situational and social context. For me, this implies that sometimes having expected answer to a particular reading task can be biased or unfair, because each student carries different background or knowledge from their own schema that mirrors most of the writing responses. Additionally, we can't expect too much from students when they have less of experience stored in their background knowledge. Yep. And the knowledge on how early a student acquires reading skills make a big difference throughout their lives. However, sometimes students learn those basic skills, but some challenges can also hinder their progress. For example, the student cited in the article of Lewis, the student was named Curtis, was doing great in kindergarten, but found out that she needed to have a reading intervention when she reached third grade. This, for me, explains that as teachers, we have to do our job, whether teaching phonological awareness or analyzing a text, just to being aware of what our students can handle and can't, to address their needs, as it is imperative for their progress. Just like what Farrell and the rest of the co-authors cited in their article about the developmental stages of reading. That really makes sense. Sometimes, like for me, I think having those lists, reading teachers can be very reading teachers can be very effective to have those in mind, and have those as reminders for them to address the skills that their students at that level needed to acquire or able to acquire, so that any kind of delays or problems can be lessened, or if not, can be avoided. And with that, I found out that there are different types of interventions and approaches for some students with language problem disabilities. One example is dyslexia. I quote, dyslexia refers to a cluster of symptoms that result in people having difficulties with specific language skills, particularly reading. According to Farrell and the rest of the co-authors, 2010, students with, that's from them. Students with dyslexia, again, according to Farrell and the rest of the co-authors, students with dyslexia usually experience difficulties with other language skills, such as spelling, writing, pronouncing words. Dyslexia affects individuals throughout their lives. However, this impact can change at different stages in person's life. Hopefully not, because just like how, and this is just my personal view, just like how our kids with disabilities are taught to be not able to learn. Guess what? Nowadays, a lot of research and strategies that eventually in actually happening to help them learn. So I'm not disagreeing, but I'm hoping that this is just one of those theories that in the future can be helped by our experts. Similarly, Swirling 2018 mentioned this reading disorder, but he focuses more on the approaches. According to him, structured literacy or SL approaches are often recommended for students with dyslexia and other poor decoders sorry. These are given example by International Dyslexia Association 2017. From my experience, I use many visual representations to my daily instructions and a lot of rhyming songs that develop their phonological awareness. However, I'm I'm curious how to identify this problem at as early as in pre-K. So that's one thing I will look forward to continue reading to, and continue to research, because that for me personally, that could be something very important as pre-K teacher in my practice to find out as early as, unless there's certain age or level of grade level that it can only be detected. Yeah, so yeah, this is something that I will continue to read or research on. But even at this early stage, I have learned that different levels of readiness they have regarding their reading skills. Some really struggle, and it's challenge for me to know what I provide and offer for them now that could significantly impact their future reading endeavors. Yeah, just like what I said, it would be helpful if I will know. I'm just wondering, I'm curious if pre-K or early childhood teachers can identify this kind of problem. Yeah, because if they say reading starts at early childhood education, then I'm just hypothesizing that we could also identify if a student has dyslexia or not. Anyways, moving on. So to end my thoughts from all the materials in text we have for this week's reading is that as an educator, it is my job to ensure that I provide students with evidence-based instruction and effective strategies suggested by reading experts to help students with reading difficulties or identify problems addressed appropriately. That's it. All right. Bye.